Hey y'all, I'm Ashley. This is my puppy dog Charlie. I'm not by myself today. I've got some help. He's a mess. He's 6 months old, 7 months old now, I think, Beagle. And the best dog in the entire world. Or at least I think so. Me and Cody think so. But I just got off of work. It's 7 in the morning. I'm tired. It's fine. No big deal. We're going to talk today some about reading plans for 2020. Or reading challenges for 2020. One of them at least. I do several challenges. I like reading challenges. I've never done a readathon. Mainly because I've never had a channel before or a platform, you could say, before to talk about my reading. So I've never really participated, but I do challenges every year. I love reading challenges. They help me broaden my reading world outside of what I would normally pick up. This one is actually not that different from what I would pick up because it's a science fiction and fantasy. I don't read a lot of science fiction because I don't much care for space books. That's one of the reasons I'm doing this one, because I don't like space books necessarily, but I want to read them, if that makes any sense. I want to find good ones that I do like, so I do read them every year. I will link down below the challenge for this one. So if you want to do it, you can. Maybe if you do it, I do it. Well, I do it and you do it. Then we can kind of keep each other accountable. Comment down below. It's called the Swords and Swords and Stars Challenge. It's run by a blog. We'll go through the questions or the prompts, and then I'll tell you recommendations for what I've read before or for what I'm planning on reading this year, or if I've already read it in some cases. So we shall see what happens. First prompt is read a book in the subgenre New Weird. That is kind of a created subgenre. I believe Jeff Vandermeer created it with Annihilation. I don't know if he created it with Annihilation, but he's kind of the one I've always seen credited for the subgenre New Weird. Lots of plant life, lots of body horror. I've read Annihilation, loved Annihilation, read the whole series, the Southern Reach trilogy. Don't recommend every book. I do recommend Annihilation because it's got that whole subgenre there. Another one that I've already read that I would recommend is Wilder Girls. Read it last year. Lots of body horror. Lots of weird. Jeff Vandermeer has another book out called Born that I'm probably going to pick up for this one because I did like his writing. I just didn't care for the next two in the series. So I'm going to try that for this challenge. I'm sure it fits. The next, sorry, Charlie's sniffing. The next is a book with a map. Any fantasy book has a map. Just about. The Raven Tower. Read it last year. Glorious. Has a map. The Priory of the Orange Tree. Read it last year. Didn't care for it. Has a map. I'm picking up The Crier's War. I have not read it. It's on my TBR from last year that I bought. Will eventually get to it, but it has a map. It's fantasy. Most books that are considered fantasy have maps in the front of them. So that one's not a super hard one to pick. Next is read a book with time travel or time in the title. I'm not a fan of time travel, so I'm looking for things that aren't time travel. I have found How to Stop Time by Matt Haig. I've had this on my TBR for a year now or more. It's about a guy who lives forever, and I think a relationship he's in. Not real sure details. Gonna read it. Has time in the title. Next, read a book with an author that's new to you. I plan on reading Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. I have another book by her, An Enchantment of Ravens. 2 books. Have not read either one. New to me. So, but this one's so much prettier. Look at that purple cover. This is actually an Alcrate edition. The original cover's green, but I'm like, this one's so much better because it's purple. Next question, if I can get it. Read a book with stars on the cover or in the title. Stars on the cover, in the title. This one's not one I was planning for. Oh, yeah, I've got it. The Starless Sea. Stars in the title. I talked about that one, I believe, in my books I want to read in 2020. Erin Morgenstern wrote it. She also wrote The Night Circus. I loved it, so I'll read it. The next one is read an science fiction or fantasy novella. The Deep by River Solomon. I plan on reading this one. Charlie's got a ball. Sorry, that's what you probably just heard if it made the camera shake. Read a book with magic in it. Serpent and the Dove. This is a book about witches. So I'm assuming it has magic. Read a book with spaceships on the cover. Or a spaceship on the cover. Providence by Ann Leckie. Now, the Raven Tower that I showed you with books with maps in it is also by Ann Leckie, and I loved it. I've never read any of her space books, so that's my next go-to. We shall see how it works out. Read a book over 500 pages. The Starless Sea, over 500 pages. Most science fiction or most fantasy books are over 500 pages. There's some that are less. I've not read many that are less, so that won't be a hard one to hit. Read a science fiction book by a female author. Ann Leckie's a female author. The Deep by River Solomon. They are non-binary. Not really a female, but I would still count it because it's not a man. Read a book that takes place in space, on a ship or on a different planet. The Providence by Ann Leckie. Or, probably a John Scalzi book. I've never read any of his books. But there's The Collapsing Empire. I have a copy of it up here. I'm sure it takes place in space. There's one by Becky Chambers called A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. I absolutely love that series. It's the Wayfarer series by her. A lot of them take place in spaceships on other planets. Fantastic. Read a book with dragons in it. That one I plan to read His Majesty's Dragon by Naomi Novik. I've read other books by her before. I cannot wait to read that one. Charlie! Out of my closet. Sorry. Read a book based on a form. Read a book based on or from a fantasy or science fiction game. The only one I know for sure of is The Witcher. I'll probably read it. Read a militaristic sci-fi book or a portal fantasy. Come Tumbling Down by Shannon McGuire is what I plan on reading for this. I have that coming sometime this week, probably Tuesday, like tomorrow. It's a portal fantasy series starting with Every Heart a Doorway. Fantastic. Loved it to death. Highly recommend it. Charlie. Read a science fantasy, sci-fantasy. This is a specific genre that kind of blends science and then magic together, and that's how they build the world. One that I highly recommend is The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. She has another book coming out this year that I will look into to see if it fits, because I've already read this series. If it does fit, then I'll probably read that. If it doesn't fit, then one I've already read is The Ascent to Godhood by J.Y. Yang. That is in a series, the Tensor series, starting with The Black Tides of Heaven and The Red Threads of Fortune. It's a science fiction and fantasy novella, so it would work for an earlier prompt that we talked about. It's an interesting way to write, because they take science like math and geology, this one specifically geology, and rocks, and somebody can control the world, or not the world but the earth, and they can cause earthquakes or prevent earthquakes depending on what's needed, and they go through seasons of really bad times and really good times, and really interesting. I had never really read anything written in this sort of way before until this one. Loved it. Loved it. Highly recommend it. Next is read a grimdark or urban fantasy. Now, I've read a lot of urban fantasy, so I'm trying for grimdark, and I'm going to read The Poppy War. I'll have it sometime this week, hopefully. I bought it with a gift card I got for Christmas. It's kind of about war, I think. I mean, it's called The Poppy War. I've heard a lot of content warnings for it. Read a sci-fi classic. I'm going to read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I have not read this before. I've had this specific book on my shelf for at least 2 years now, and I just haven't gotten to it. I can't help that. I just haven't put in any effort, I guess you could say. But I plan to eventually. Hopefully this year, since I've put it out there in the world that I'm going to read it in 2020. Next, read a fantasy classic. I'm going to tell you a secret. I have never read The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings. Those are both fantasy. I love the movies, and I've never read the book. So, I do plan on, it's another one I'm putting it out there in the world. I'm going to read it in 2020. Let's see back in a year how that works out. Read a book recommended or blurbed by another science fiction or fantasy author. I'm probably just going to go look at like the back of these books and see who blurbs them and then pick from there. Because like the only other way to figure this out is to go on their social medias, and I didn't want to do that this morning. So, read a science fiction or fantasy new release. Come Tumbling Down comes out in 2020. The Starless Sea come out in 2019. I would count that as new. N.K. Jemisin has a new book coming out in 2020. Sarah Gailey has 2 new books coming out in 2020. So, I would, hey Charlie, I would just pick and go from there. Really easy. But this is the challenge for this year. I'm gonna put it out there. I'm doing it. If in a year and we come back in December and I've not finished, it's on me. But I just do these for fun. I kind of like to compete with myself, to challenge my reading and change up the stories I read. Most of these I've picked are fantasy, but maybe I'll change my mind and read like a science fiction. But that's not like me. I don't really care for space books, so we'll see. But thank y'all for watching. Comment if you have any ideas down below. I, try to get to them. But I'll see y'all later. Bye.